There is a God.
Hi guys, welcome back to the Red Flag Radio F1 YouTube channel. We are here to give a full breakdown of the Bahrain Grand Prix, where finally a race weekend delivered to the fans. After two snooze fests in China and Japan, Bahrain gave us exactly what we needed. Proper racing across the grid, tire strategy shakeups, a mid-race safety car which we don't know why it came, but it definitely spiced up some things, and some genuine wheel-to-wheel drama all the way through. This was Formula One the way we love it: chaotic, unpredictable, and fun. So, here are the results of the 2025 Bahrain Grand Prix. You can just pause for a moment and can go through it. Okay, let's dive right into it because we have got a lot to unpack now. Let's start at the top. Oscar Piastri, man, he was just untouchable. Like on his 50th Grand Prix start, he delivered his second career victory and it looked effortless. From the first stint, he controlled the pace, extended the gaps, and never looked threatened. He was always calm and composed, and that allowed him to just extend the gap even after the safety car, man. He was unbelievable. Even in qualifying, he delivered, and he's just there to get those 25 points, man. What a race for him.
Yeah, and perhaps the best part is that along with Lando, who we'll get to in a second, have managed to eke out a third double podium in a row for McLaren. So China, Japan, and now Bahrain, and McLaren, at least as a constructors, is looking just indomitable. And no one is, of course, happier and more smug than me right now. But amazing drive from Oscar Piastri. There was never a doubt this was in the bag for him. To the extent that even Lando in the post-qualifying interview had remarked that, "Oh, I think Oscar is just going to lap everyone. I'm just going to try to
True.
get to the podium." And speaking of which, great job from Lando not bottling the start. Sort of, he did sort of bottle it with the false start, but then even then the car and he had enough pace, and him dive bombing three cars right into turn one was a very necessary move for him to eventually serve that penalty and tank that time penalty and still manage to get on the podium. And even towards the end it looked like he was going to eat up Russell as well, but not enough laps in the race. Perhaps three more laps and he would have stuck that as well. He was very close to Russell towards the last four laps of the race. And amazing stuff from McLaren. What can we say? They have the fastest car. They're proving that.
Absolutely, they had to deliver. And although we were surprised when we saw that Lando Norris started from P6 after a very disappointing qualifying session, I think he came back very strong. Although he made some mistakes, and but I feel P3 is a really good position from where he started, and his start was really good. Yes, we can talk about that false start, but he was there from the moment it went green, and he was just with Leclerc. He was at P3 after completing that first sector, so he delivered. He did what he was needed to do instead of going backwards, which we have seen traditionally in 2024. So that was a great start. He fought really well. It could have been 1-2 if that false start didn't happen, I feel, because he was doing really well. But like you said, if there were 2-3 more laps, he could have gotten Russell as well.
And
But
the
I feel
best part is that he has increased his gap from Max. And more importantly, now Oscar is right behind Lando in the championship. So as a whole, McLaren is sort of creating that distance from Max and Red Bull. And just the 1 point gap increasing was a very necessary boost in confidence for Lando. So it's a little bit bittersweet for him, even though he is getting sort of absorbed by his teammate on the track, but still, good stuff from Lando.
true, but I feel at this moment, after four exhausting races, I feel there's no margin of error for Lando Norris as well, because we saw Piastri made that error in Australian Grand Prix, and now he's coming back stronger than ever. Lando Norris can't afford any mistake now. Yes, we know Max Verstappen is struggling and he's losing that gap uh, to Norris, but I feel Norris have to perform at his crazy level because Piastri is in a perfect form and he's looking to dominate more. So there's no margin of error for him now. He can perform well. We have seen Lando Norris is capable of winning races now, and he delivers whenever it's needed. So I think this will get super spicy from here with both McLaren drivers fighting it out. And not to forget, if there's any team who comes up with a very strong upgrade package, like how we saw in 2024 when Red Bull were dominating and suddenly they lost all the points when even McLaren, Mercedes, and Ferrari, all three teams joined them. So they just can't afford to lose those points straight away. I feel they have to grab as many points as possible from the start so that they have that comfortable lead over the other teams, and they can just hope that they can continue the performance which they have at the moment.
Right. And speaking of continuing to perform well, Mr. Consistent on podium again. It's almost unsurprising and a little bit boring at this point because he sort of manages to get on podium without having to do much every race, it feels like. And I'm not trying to take away from him just having a neat race. Like, credit where credit is due, even though he doesn't see a lot of action on track as often, he's still just qualifying at the right place, making the right choices, and he's just getting on the podium. It's just a bag of points for not much.
True. I mean, this was peak George Russell. He fought so well. He got P2 in qualifying, but he got that penalty because of which he started from P3. But he made that up in in just his start. So he's doing really well. He fought really well. That last lap defense against Lando, I felt like that positioning of his car was sublime. I mean, even Lando was surprised that he got that outside line. Maybe he was planning to go for the inside, but Russell just positioned his car in between. Like, you can go for outside, you can go for inside, but he positioned his car at the middle, which he was not doing in like 56th lap or 55th lap. He positioned his car perfectly for the last lap, and even Lando was confused at that moment. So amazing defensive performance from Russell, and he's doing that job from Mercedes. In a way, he's still fighting for that championship because of his consistency. He's doing really well. He's there with Lando, Max, and Piastri now. He's, I think, fourth in the championship.
Yeah.
So he's doing whatever is needed. And amazing stuff for him, for his side, for Mercedes.
Yeah, and I think Antonelli has this is his first race where he didn't bag points. He was 11th, but then still a decent drive from him. Like, he was almost there in the points as well. And I mean, he is still technically a rookie, so you cannot expect much from him. He was also getting into scraps with other drivers, and that I think he was too much for him to then make up eventually, because he did put up defense against a couple of drivers, and that didn't go very well, and he just lost too much time during the middle part of the race. But again, decent drive from Antonelli as well. Could be worse, could be better. But yeah, amazing stuff from Russell. Again, we don't want to harp on the same point, but he's quietly keeping up with everyone else. In Bahrain,
True.
at least there was some action at the beginning and towards the end. But other than that, all the other races, he's just quietly hanging around in the background of the championship contenders, and he's just waiting for one of them to slip up, which none of them can afford to, right? Because, yeah, Oscar is just perfect. He's not making any mistakes, and Lando is
True.
getting a little scrappy, but he's fighting this year. He's not bottling his starts. So,
True.
crazy fight at the
Ye-
top.
Yeah. And for Antonelli, I feel it's just unfortunate for him with that safety car timing because he
Yeah,
was doing really well, and his overtakes, man, it was such a slick overtake on Verstappen.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
we used to see that for Verstappen when he was in his rookie days, like when he's just started for Red Bull as well in 2016. It was pure perfect, and this just shows that what a driver he is, and he will be there fighting for championships in future. That's how he's portraying his performance these days. But yeah, unfortunate that he didn't get any points in this race, but he's doing whatever is needed. Definitely, there are some races where you don't get any points, and even Mercedes know that. So he will come back stronger, I feel, in Saudi Arabia. But amazing performance, man.
Yeah.
He will get those points regularly.
True. But then also, speaking of good points, I'm very, very happy to report to everyone that Ferrari's upgrade package has worked. They have managed to come fourth and fifth, which is great for them. They really, really needed that after disqualifications and being ninth and 10th in the Drivers' Championship up until the last race. And this was a much needed performance and confidence boost for both drivers, especially Hamilton, because he seemed to be complaining as late as qualifying Q3.
I think they're going in that upward trajectory now. They are doing better and better, and I feel these upgrades finally looked effective. Obviously, there will be some moments where you won't feel that comfortable because
Hmm.
you are driving that car and fighting with every other driver. So but I feel there is some pace in that car, and definitely they should move forward. Again, P4 and P5 isn't where they want to be because they're still looking for that podium. We know Hamilton got P1 in sprint, but in the race, I feel they will get that podium eventually. But how long they have to wait is something I don't know. I mean, many people criticize that they went on hard tires but over soft. But I feel that was a safe bet because we saw Russell soft were falling off at the end. So they could have gone with softs, but it was too risky. Maybe they could have experimented with one of the drivers, but we have criticized Ferrari that they experiment too much. So I felt they went for a safe option, and it worked. At least P4 and P5 is a decent position, although it could have been P3 as well. But I feel Lando Norris was too quick for them as well. So I feel P4 and P5 is not bad. Ferrari should be happy with those 22 points, but they would definitely prefer to get some podiums now.
Yeah,
And
and
that's how Jeddah could be for them.
yeah, but then that's to connect the last point, 2 points you mentioned. I think yes, McLaren was just way too quick up at the front, and consistently we've seen through all the first four tracks that the Mercedes engine in general is very fast, and Jeddah, of course, is a very fast track. So
Right.
I don't feel like Ferrari will make a podium impression in Jeddah, but we'll get back to that later on when we talk about Jeddah. But then, yeah, at least they're getting in a decent haul of points, and I think you're quite right that taking the safe bet was the right call because, as you mentioned, Ferrari historically tends to play around with their tires too much, and I'm just glad they didn't put full wets on Lewis's car this race. Like, it's
True.
fine. They only put hards. Could be worse. You could fully expect them to
Exactly.
accidentally put two inters and two softs.
Oh man, that's possible. But uh, at least they finished where they could have been, much behind. So
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
feel P4, P5, again, like how we say, damage limitation when they really want to fight at top. But yeah,
Yeah,
so far so good. They would be happy with that. But
exactly.
talking about the side which won't be happy, Max Verstappen, because I feel he gave everything that was possible, but everything just went against him as well. There were
Yeah.
bad pit stops, poor timing with a safety car, even dropped to last at one point. Yet somehow he still clawed back to P6 with a last lap overtake on Gasly. Just Max doing Max things, but how much he can, be motivated to drive that car now. That's a different feeling at the moment because Red Bull is nowhere where he wants to be.
Yeah, and I mean, very true that credit where credit is due. Max is dragging a tractor 2 points at least, and not the very cheap points as well, not ninth and 10th. Not to trash talk Yuki, of course, for coming ninth because he's the first Red Bull teammate to score points this season. But yeah,
Right.
good stuff from Max to at least bring in points consistently. I think we sort of knew that he would do very well in Japan because he just loves that track so much. But then we did sort of see it coming that Max would not be able to do much here because this was basically a more real world scenario of the testing we saw. And even though you're not supposed to read into testing, most of the things we saw in testing did sort of come into fruition during this race in terms of pace. And yeah, I mean, what else can you do, right? For Max, he's already beating a dead horse, and that horse has no horsepower anymore. So,
True.
this is the best he can do, and still great stuff to at least keep himself within fighting distance of the championship leaders right now, right?
True. But I feel there are already some rumors of tension already flying that maybe Max Verstappen will trigger an exit clause and leave them for 2026, which can be a big shock considering Red Bull is around Max Verstappen. So if Max Verstappen decides to leave, it will be a massive blow towards their performance and towards their high ambitions goals for 2026 as well, because 2026 is a new era that's about to start. So
Yeah.
I don't know where Max Verstappen can go from here. Maybe Aston Martin is something they can do. I doubt, but it's a very tricky spot for them. But on the other side, I feel we should give some credit to Tsunoda, like you shared, that he's the he's that driver who got some points which we usually don't see from that second driver for Red Bull. After so long, he got some points for Red Bull. So it's a very it's a very good sight for them as well. He's becoming more reliable with every race, and that's a positive takeaway for Red Bull. But they definitely need some upgrades. They do, because if Ferrari can push forward and McLaren is doing really well, and Mercedes as well, then they need some upgrades to be in that fighting position with them. You just can't expect Max to deliver 200% when car is delivering 0%.
Yeah, and we are not fully aware of the entire upgrade plan schedule for Red Bull throughout the year, but then it is very obvious what the teams are doing, right? They are keeping it very simple. Ferrari must have known from wind tunnel testing that they are going to need upgrades soon. So they have brought in
Right,
upgrades as early as the fourth race. Mercedes and McLaren are clearly confident that they've got pace, they're good for a while. So
right.
they are just sticking to the car they have. Then Red Bull probably, it looks like, and this is just speculation, but it looks like Red Bull had some form of confidence in their car during testing and wind tunnel testing and simulated testing, that they won't probably need an upgrade package too soon, or maybe they're just intentionally sandbagging some of their points away for now, because maybe their upgrade is going to be crazy and absolutely delete everyone from the grid. But who knows, man? It just looks like everything is falling apart at the seams for Red Bull at the same time. And for the third race in a row, we're just seeing, as we've mentioned, Red Bull getting a planet sized migraine.
True. But I think what they are doing is, I completely agree with your second part. I feel they want an upgrade that definitely puts them at the top. That's why maybe they are delaying it instead of just bringing some small upgrades and, moving slightly closer. That's something that they are not looking for. Maybe they are just taking that pain at the moment and pray that the upgrade which they will get, maybe in when the European leg starts, I think that's the time when they will bring some massive upgrades to push them forward. And probably that's the reason why they're delaying it, so that they do all the internal testing and find that right balance, and then get those upgrades in Europe, because every team base is in Europe, and if something doesn't work, they can definitely make some changes accordingly. So I think that's the goal. They are just playing that waiting game at the moment. I don't think they will bring any major upgrades in Saudi as well. But let's
Hmm.
see. Hopefully they can perform better, because I feel if they qualify well, Max Verstappen can push at a crazy level, like
Yeah.
how we usually see.
Yeah, but yeah, let's see what happens. I mean, I'm sure neither of us really expects Red Bull to make much of an impression in Jeddah, like you mentioned. But let's see what happens with them. But speaking of another former Red Bull driver, Pierre Gasly, amazing drive from him coming in seventh. He got overtaken by Max, as you mentioned earlier, on the last lap, but until then he was even sixth, and that was some crazy driving from him. And this is exactly what we wanted, right? So far as I remember, if memory serves me, we expected Williams to do these things after preseason testing. But Alpine was supposed to be their close contender to lead the midfield, and god damn, Alpine and specifically Gasly is delivering.
True. I mean, huge weekend for Pierre Gasly, considering Alpine was the only team with 0 points, and finally
Yeah,
they got some points. He was the driver of the qualifying session for me, where he delivered that lap, and we were seeing that Alpine had pace, because even Duan was doing really well. But credit where it's due. Gasly with an amazing drive. It could have been P6, but P7 is also a decent result.
yeah,
After all the noise around Alpine struggles in last three races, they finally delivered and got some points. But yeah,
absolutely.
amazing drive for Gasly, and shame for Duan. He was
Hmm.
doing really well, but that safety car timing again was something that was didn't work in his favor. It could have been a better race for him, but
Yeah,
I feel Alpine delivered with that pace. And like you said, we
true.
thought that Alpine will be there with Williams for those final points, but they delivered. So they should be happy. They are slowly pulling themselves on that deep end of those points. And
Yeah,
if they can continue this performance, then definitely it will be a headache for other midfield teams.
yeah, and I think Alpine is one of those teams who desperately need the money that comes with a decent constructors finish for next year as well. So it's great stuff to see this coming out towards the beginning leg of the season. I'm just happy Duan didn't try to practice or try to implement something he did in simulation again. So good job for not wrecking the car as well, based off of what he
True,
learned in simulations. And
true.
yeah, perhaps if he doesn't try more shenanigans, he won't be kicked out by the eighth race.
Hopefully that's the case. I feel he's gaining that confidence,
Yeah,
and if team can show that support for like maybe next 2 3 races at least, and he continues to be at Gasly level, which is not easy
yeah,
in any ways, but if he can be close to him, I think they will show more trust towards him, and maybe Pinto will play that reserve driver role for the time being if
hmm,
Duan can continue his
hmm,
performance. But talking about the performance, man, who would have guessed Haas would be this consistent in 2025? I mean, Ocon and Bierman both in the points again, and Bierman did it from dead last on the grid. And that final radio from Bierman's dad was one of the most wholesome moments where he was just congratulating his son for
yeah,
getting those points, man. But amazing stuff, man. And Ocon, he's silently showing that Haas made a brilliant call of bringing this Frenchman, man, because he's delivering. He's like the best of the rest. When we
yeah,
take out those top four teams, he's getting those points again and again. An amazing drive from both the drivers.
yeah. And what a legend Ollie Behrman is for gaining 10 places during the race distance. For me, he was definitely driver of the day. I no one
True.
deserved it more than him. And also a little tangent, another weird driver of the day, like it didn't make much sense to me this time also, is one of those head scratches. Like, but anyway, definitely Ollie
I
was
think
more
they have to
deserving.
scrap that driver of the day or make some improvements, like let the pundits who are doing the commentary and who have the knowledge to decide who was the driver of the day instead of allowing fans to do that, because those make any those driver of the day awards doesn't make any sense to me as well.
Exactly.
I don't.
Quite right, quite right. So, FIA, if you're watching, you have two people in this video who are fans and beginning to become pundits in about 5 years' time. So, if you want two people to rate us, to rate the driver of the day every race, do feel free to reach out to us. But
You have our
anyway,
number.
yeah.
I hope so.
But anyway, getting back to the race, amazing stuff from Behrman. I could not be happier to see him show this kind of performance back to back. And Ocon as well. Historically, he has been a little bit of a hit or miss driver for a few teams before Haas, but clearly he's very at home at Haas and he's very comfortable with the car as well. Consistently bringing in points, putting the car where we don't expect it to be in the points. And yeah, massive props to Haas for being this consistent, you know?
True. If there were moments where you could have showed that promising performance, they are delivering that. But
Mhm.
talking about other side, where promising performance is turning to some painful moments, Williams. I mean, Sainz looked decent from early on because he qualified really well. I thought that he will get some crucial points this weekend and he will show that I am I'm still that driver who used to drive that Ferrari car. But very scrappy moments we saw from him. He had to DNF because of damage on his car, and he got a 10-second penalty as well with those moments against Tsunoda and Antonelli. So a very disappointing performance for Williams as a whole, because they got 0 points, and Albon was also fighting but no points to show.
Yeah, it was very tragic for Sainz as well as Albon because individually Albon has been doing great, so it was a little disappointing to not see him in the points. And Sainz, we definitely expected to see the preseason testing sparks on the track where he delivered that fastest overall time through all testing sessions. But yeah, I think it almost felt like during his battles with Antonelli and Yuki, he sort of felt that the car had pace, so he was getting desperate to prove the point. And in doing that, he got into those scrappy fights, which just ended up giving him the short end of the stick, ultimately leading to a hole in his side pod on top of a time penalty. So it was just a tragic comedy of errors for him, and ultimately it all fell apart. And it just, to me, it just felt like there was a lot of desperation in his driving, because he knew he could be quicker, he knew he could get points, but he got a little too impatient. So yeah, I think it's just that frustration, perhaps, because the car clearly
Maybe
has the
could
pace.
true. He was the fastest driver in preseason testing. Obviously, we don't take those timings
Yeah.
straight to our heart, but there was pace, and we can't ignore that. We saw Williams doing really well from the start as well. So,
Hmm.
a very disappointing result. This was a weekend, we can say, of what could have been for them, because the car felt decent from the initial reactions we saw. So 0 points to show. I don't think they will be happy. And talking about the other team who won't be happy, Racing Bulls, because a very frustrating night for them. Liam Lawson struggled all race, a clumsy move that got him a penalty, and he
Yeah.
just couldn't keep it clean. It's not working that well from for Lawson. And on the other side, Hajar, who has shown promise in different race weekends, but couldn't deliver any points in this race.
Yeah, I think definitely the switch for between Racing Bulls and Red Bull has worked out well for Red Bull, and Lawson's struggles sort of have followed him back to his original team. He's gone back to the mothership now, but his troubles have not left him. And I think every weekend that Yuki outperforms Lawson, an extra year of lifespan gets added to Helmut Marko's life. I think he's the happiest person on planet Earth to see Liam not do as well as Yuki, which is it feels bad for Liam, because we know he is a driver of great caliber. And
True.
Hajar also, he had consistent P7s, and I think he was P7 in Japan or China, one of those races, and clearly he had the pace. And
True.
uh, I think, but he has that kind of mentality that he's just bounced back. Like, he at least had a race, he didn't DNF, no points, fine, but then he used this as a learning experience, right? Like, this is what the car feels like on a spicy track where you can
True.
fight people. And
Right.
that's pretty much it for them. And we should also talk about the other team that didn't score any points, which is Sauber. But man, we sort of at least wanted, like Racing Bulls, for them to finish the race, and it feels bad that Hulk didn't even finish the race. So it's we weren't expecting any photographic moments or photographic finishes from Sauber. We're not expecting them to drag race finish a McLaren or something, but at least they needed to be there. They needed to cause some trouble to someone. But it felt like they might as well not have been a part of the race, and it would have felt the same, which is a very harsh remark, but it is exactly what it felt like.
Right. I mean, Kick Sauber didn't shock anyone this weekend.
Yeah.
They were exactly where we expected at the back. Hulkenberg's disqualification made it even worse, I feel, because it was just another skid block breach which we saw for Hamilton in China. So again, he was 13th on track, so it
Hmm.
doesn't make any difference. But yeah, that's where we expected them to be. Bortoleto ran a quiet race and finished last on track, so no progress, no major errors, just more of the same that we have seen so far. So a very disappointing weekend for Kickstauber, but I feel they knew what was coming. No progress, no major errors, just more of the same that we have already seen for Kickstauber. So I don't know.
Yeah, the worst part is that every weekend we make these videos and we say disappointing for Sauber, disappointing for Sauber. And at this point, are we really surprised or disappointed? Because
No.
it just feels like they are a back market team, and there is not a lot we can do to find ways to appreciate them when simply the car does not have what it takes. If they're probably running 200 kilos heavier with a bigger engine or something, I don't know. It just feels like their car is at least 20% heavier than everyone else. It's just not able to drag itself off the start line. It feels like they're driving a cow, honestly. But
True.
yeah, sad.
Maybe at the moment stakes are pretty low for them.
Mm, well done.
But talking about the final team, which we didn't even talk about, I mean, you will enjoy this part, but I won't, because let's talk about Aston Martin, because this decline is now hard to ignore, man. I mean, 2 years ago, They were fighting for podiums here on this track,
Yeah.
and they were barely in the conversation. Alonso qualified P13 and he was like thanking the team that thank you everyone for your work. It just says it all that there is no pace in this car. And while 2026 is the big target, they still need to show some fight in this year as well, man. You can't just mail in an entire season. As a fan, I feel I deserve more from this team. And we have Adrian Newey as well. Maybe there are some major upgrades that needs to come. Maybe in the European leg we will see that. But come on, man, Aston Martin, the final team. I feel I don't know, man. There's not much I can say about the performance because if this is the 2025 for the whole season, we have to say that just give us some hope for 2026 then. Because if you continue to perform like this and 2026 we perform even worse, I mean, I don't think there's any possibility of going even back. Maybe overtaking kick Sauber at the back. That's the one thing. But I
Yeah,
don't
this
know,
pretty
man.
much
It's
feels
really
like rock bottom for Aston Martin. You're quite right. And
true.
it doesn't bring me any joy to say this because I too want to see more fighting amongst the teams with great talent on their hands. Honda coming in to help out Aston Martin soon. Adrian Newey already working with them. So, yeah, you're right. I think they might be focusing on the 26th season, but they will need money from this season as well to aid that. They can't just write it off and be like, this is not our season, it is what it is.
True. And hopefully, with some upgrades, they can at least show that they can move forward because historically, we haven't seen that. The upgrades which they always bring usually take them backwards. But like we said, I don't think there's more option of going even back. So let's see
Yeah, at least the
how they will
good thing
perform.
about rock bottom is that you can't get worse than this. It's only upwards from here for Aston Martin and your fans.
And 2025 upgrades will have Adrian Newey's effect as well. So they definitely have to work on what they can do because I feel there's too much potential that they can unlock because they are at the rock bottom. And Adrian Newey's mind can work to deliver some better performance because they should at least fight for some points and not just
Hmm.
fight at the back.
Hmm.
That's how it should be, I feel, because it's an Aston Martin we are talking about.
Yeah. And we had referenced this a long time ago when we started that this one of the biggest speculation points for Aston Martin, for us at least, was do they even bother focusing on 2025 or do they just retreat 2025 as a studying session for Newey?
And like we also said that there's a potential driver swap that is possible of bringing Max Verstappen in 2026. But right
Hmm.
now, I don't think that's happening because their car is not delivering. So they need some performance to show that, hey, this is a car where you can perform at a crazy level like how you used to perform for Red Bull. So
Hmm.
at the moment, that advertisement doesn't look promising for Verstappen. And if Verstappen continues to struggle for Red Bull and Aston Martin can't deliver, maybe that's not the option that can work out for him as well. So let's
Hmm.
see. Let's see what upgrades they will bring and can they move forward. I really hope they can bring a McLaren type upgrade and bring those 2023 days back for me, man. I really miss those days. But I guess that's pretty much it for Aston Martin as we move to Jeddah, where the walls are closed, the corners are fast. Anything can happen here because Saudi has delivered pure chaos in the past. And if Bahrain was a momentum shift, this could blow the title race wide open, I feel, right?
Yeah, I think between the McLarens, at least my guess for Jeddah will be, and of course, after the practice sessions, we'll have a better discussion about this. But I think what I see happening is that it probably could be a front row lockout or Russell on the front row with one of the McLaren drivers. And I feel within the first two laps, whichever McLaren manages to sort of start disappearing in the distance will just absorb the race completely. It may be Oscar like he did in Bahrain, or it could be Lando as well, like he did in Singapore last year.
Right.
So it could be one of those races. It's probably going to be one of those races where one of the McLaren drivers up front is going to have a lonely race, and the rest of the field will get a lot of fighting. And if it's a 1-2 start for McLaren, I think either it's going to be a very nice race where one of the drivers just gets a better start, or we're going to see two McLarens crashing into turn one.
I think that's the prediction for the whole 2025 season at the moment, where we will see
Yeah.
both drivers fighting at the top, where one driver just creates that gap and just sail off to another planet, or maybe they will fight so hard that they maybe crash and create an opportunity for other drivers.
Yeah, the
But that
bad thing about having two orange colored intercontinental ballistic missiles is that occasionally they can crash into each other. And if the fight gets too spicy, I doubt either of the drivers is ever going to give the other one an inch of space. So, yeah.
let's see, because it's heating up at the moment, and like I said, there's no margin of error at the moment because they have to perform at that level.
Mm.
Well, that's a wrap on the Bahrain Grand Prix. It delivered, like we say. If you like this breakdown, give us a like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon, man, if you haven't already. Red Flag Radio F1 will be back for the full Jeddah recap and race predictions. Let us know your driver of the day, if it was Hamilton or someone else. Your disappointment of the weekend, of course, it was Aston Martin, but you can share other teams as well. And your dark horse for Saudi in the comments. Let's get the debate going, man. But thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in Jeddah. Good night.
McLaren forever!